the hell is going on with this Diddy trial? The jury can't even deliberate without drama. They sending notes back to the judge. They asking crazy questions. And many people are saying this all points to a guilty verdict for Diddy. Now, I know that's bad news for a lot of people. I know a lot of men out there is saying them hoes lying. Diddy is innocent. He's just a rich man living a rich lifestyle. But the jury don't feel that way. They finna find Diddy guilty, and I'm not sure he would be a free man again. See, I always said that Diddy was moving kind of reckless. Yes, you got money. Yes, you got women at your beck and call. Yes, they would do anything for you. But once you start hosting these freak offs, you start hiring prostitutes, you start using your power to get women to do certain things, it's only a matter of time before they crush your empire. And that's exactly what happened with Cassie. Because I remember she filed that lawsuit. It went public. Within 24 hours, Diddy paid her $20 million to sell it. I was like, uh-oh. I like, Diddy, you done messed up. It ain't gonna just go away. Because once they find out you paid that money to Cassie, everybody finna come forward with a story. And soon, not long after, big burly ass dude, buff ass nigga named Lil Rod saying Diddy was violating him 5 times in 4 different countries. He said Diddy made him produce music while Diddy walked around naked. He said Diddy was grabbing his buttocks, chasing him around the room. And I was looking at that lawsuit. I was the first person to say, I think Lil Rod is full of shit. Now, I'm not trying to poo-poo what he's saying, but you a grown man. I'm looking at Diddy. He's 5'9", out of shape, slew-footed. He ain't the most physical specimen dude. So I'm thinking Lil Rod can keep Diddy off his ass if he really wanted him to, right? I was the first person to say that, and I stand on that. But now Diddy hits this trial. The jury is deliberating. They sending notes back to the judge. They asking about narcotics, and the many people are saying that's pointing to a guilty verdict. They finna find Diddy guilty on RICO. They finna find him guilty on sex trafficking. And everything is just bad for Diddy. But anyway, let's take a look at this news clip, and then I'm gonna come back and break this whole situation down. It is crazy as hell. Let's go.
Good evening, I'm Mike Marza. Day 1 of deliberations in the Sean Diddy Combs trial now in the books. And there were some fascinating developments on this day 1. The jury sending 4 different notes to the judge, a couple just procedural, but a couple also with some interesting, maybe backstory to them. The first indicated that they had selected a 4-person. That is part of the process. The second, very interesting, as the jury questioned one of the jurors' ability or willingness to follow the judge's instructions. We're going to get more into that in just a moment. And then the third note was about how to understand narcotics distribution and the allegations surrounding that, something that the judge and the jury will tackle first thing tomorrow morning. The fourth note was about wrapping for the day and returning tomorrow morning. The judge saying all along that the jury will be able to make their own schedule. They finished around 5 today. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona to dig deeper into everything that unfolded in court and during the deliberations. But first up, Darla Miles with a recap from Lower Manhattan.
The first day of jury deliberations in the Sean Diddy Combs racketeering and sex trafficking trial off to an eventful start, even though it wasn't a full day. Combs' 3 adult sons and teen daughters in court today, as well as other relatives, and his 84-year-old mother, who has attended almost every day of the trial. Deliberations beginning at 11:19 after a 2-hour reading of jury instructions. All 12 jurors and 5 alternates with their eyes laser focused on the printout, seeing following back and forth on the page line by line. The 62-page document telling jurors to evaluate the evidence carefully and to resist jumping to any conclusions based on personal likes or dislikes, gut feelings or sympathies. The first note coming back quickly, which is not uncommon at all, saying, "We have elected juror number 5 as our 4-person. Then a second note after lunch saying, "We are concerned juror 25 cannot follow your honor's instructions. Can you please come out and speak with him?" The court.
Now let me stop it right there. Because they done snitched on one juror and they said he can't follow the instructions. He don't want to. Hey, judge, can you please come out and speak to him? Now, you got to understand, the juror been with each other for 7 to 8 weeks. They been hearing testimony, and it seemed like one dude is in there uncooperative. He don't want to hear nothing they got to say. He's stuck in his ways. So they sent a note to the judge, say, hey man, he in violation. You need to come speak with him. And the judge sent the note back saying, please listen to the judge's instructions. And they heard nothing else from this juror. And that's kind of shocking to me, man. Because you would think like a case like this, everybody be on one accord. But it seemed like one juror was trying to stand his ground on something, and they ain't like what he was saying. So you gotta be careful about these jury trials. One person can feel a certain way, and then when you get in that deliberation room, they overpower you. They force you to think like them, and you ain't really got free will to put what you want to put down. So you gotta be careful. But anyway, let's continue.
Sending a note back to the jury room, reminding them to follow his instructions to follow the law. The directive apparently helpful. After a few more hours of deliberations, the foreperson sending a third note about page 37 of jury instructions about drug distribution. That's one of the underlying crimes for the racketeering count. Deciding if giving drugs to Cassie and Jane during freak-offs was a criminal act. And while jurors only need to find that Combs coerced the two women into participating just one time, they have to be unanimous on which one. Judge Arun Subramanian will address the jury's question about drug distribution when deliberations resume tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.
Now let me say this. That question about drug distribution that one juror asked, that is very important. And a lot of people is highlighting that question and saying, they already found Diddy guilty of racketeering. For you to establish a drug connection, that means you already have to find him guilty of the RICO, racketeering, running the drug enterprise. So they saying Diddy defense should be very concerned about that. And I agree, man. I agree. Now I know a lot of dudes is in their feelings. I know a lot of men is caping for Diddy. They like, hey man, Diddy just a powerful dude. So what? He brought some drugs to the party and passed them around. They was there willingly. That's still drug distribution. It ain't like the movies. Y'all been watching too much Scarface, too much Carlito's Way. Drug distribution ain't just pulling up with drugs on a boat and passing them out. No. If you bring drugs to the party and you distribute them throughout the party, even if the adults was willingly taking them, you're still distributing drugs. Now, I know a lot of people hate that. A lot of people saying they adults, they rich, man. Y'all picking on Diddy, but the law is the law. And another thing a lot of men is caping for Diddy about is sex trafficking. They said, so what? Diddy was hiring prostitutes or flying them across country. The prostitutes was willing participants. They loved the freak offs. They were just doing what Diddy said because they know they was going to get paid. All that is true. And I feel the same way. I'm not one of them fake dudes. I'm not one of them holier than thou dudes that say, hey man, I can't believe Diddy was hiring prostitutes and flying women across the country to come see him. No, because most dudes operate that way. Hell, even I operated that way before. I remember back in the day, it was a website called POF. I was staying in Dallas, Texas. I was talking to a chick that was in Houston. I didn't have enough money to give her a plane ticket, but you know, we went half on a bus ticket for her to come see me. And we freaked off. Technically, by the law, that's sex trafficking. Because I brought her to Dallas for one reason and one reason only. To knock them drawers off. And that's exactly what I did. I'm not thinking that's against the law. I'm thinking it's just a man trying to get what's his. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of dudes is caping for Diddy in that. They saying, I don't think that should be against the law. I think they trying to come down too hard on him. And I agree. But let's continue.
He also told jurors to return with an open mind. In Lower Manhattan, Darla Miles, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
And our thanks to Darla for that recap. Joined now by ABC News legal contributor Bernarda Villalona to talk about this day one of deliberations. It feels like, it's been a marathon to get here. So here we are. I want to first off talk about this juror situation this morning. It's the second note, and the foreperson said, something to the effect of, you got to come get this guy because he's not following what you want him to do. What do you make of the way it was worded, one? The way it was worded, and then two, what do you think is going on in that jury room?
So at least you know, because that juror, the foreperson, signed that note, doesn't necessarily mean that the foreperson was the person who wrote the note, is that they are jurors that are taking their oath seriously in terms of what are their directions, what are their instructions when it comes to deliberation. But I'm so surprised that so early on that you get a note like this, because usually when it comes to jury deliberations, it can become heated. Words can be exchanged. People start screaming. I've had jury deliberations where pretty much jurors have almost gone to blows doing deliberations, because you have to think that these jurors have been together for what, 7-8 weeks. They've heard from 34 witnesses. They heard hours and hours of closing arguments, and then this morning they heard over 2 hours and change of jury instructions. So there's so much to talk about, and people may be stuck also in their emotions and their feelings, and have like already dug their foot in the stand and say that, look, this is how I feel, and maybe I'm not going to move away from that. But we don't know. The note is still very vague. I'm curious to see whether they're saying that he doesn't have the ability to follow the instructions, or is it that he's choosing not to follow the instructions? So it's either he doesn't understand, doesn't comprehend, or he's saying that I'm not willing to follow these instructions no matter what you tell me to do. But it seems that they worked it out, because they were back deliberating for another few hours, and another note in regards to his actions didn't come from the jury.
Yeah, that note about the juror came in about the 70th minute mark, so they were deliberating a little more than an hour before that note came in. So the second note of note, if you will, the second one that really meant anything today, was this about narcotics distribution. What can we glean from that?
Yeah, so specifically, I think it says, if an individual asks for a controlled substance and the person hands it over, is it distribution? So a couple things that we can glean from that question. Number one, you don't get to the predicate acts to drug distribution unless you have already found that there's already racketeering conspiracy, that it's actually been proven. You
hear that? She's saying it's bad news for Diddy, because the jury is asking the judge about drug distribution, but you don't get to that point unless you found them guilty of racketeering, and that charge carries a life sentence. That's why Diddy is shaking in that cell. He's depressed right now because he know his future is looking real flimsy, and the jury is finna announce a guilty verdict. But let's continue.
Don't get to the predicate acts. You don't start talking about the predicate acts unless you have decided, one, that there was an enterprise, and two, that there was an agreement. So I find it fascinating that they've already gotten there. But again, we don't know whether it's just one juror who has that question, or a few of the jurors that have that question, or actually all 12 of the jurors have that question. But also in terms of what predicate act that they're asking this question of, remember doing closing arguments, the prosecution said that if you find 2 independent drug distribution acts, then you can find him guilty of the racketeering conspiracy. So 2 independent times where Sean Combs distributed narcotics to someone, and it can be, you can ask me for drugs, I give you drugs, and that's possession with intent to distribute. It can be that easy, even by you asking me for it. It's that easy when it comes to making out that count. So it's so much that you can look into it. I would be nervous if I was the defense to see a question like that, because again, you must be that you have reached a decision as to that there was an enterprise, a criminal enterprise, an agreement to engage in predicate acts.
Yeah. Now let me say this, because I've been reading comments, I've been paying attention to people's reaction toward the Diddy trial, and many people is saying they think Diddy is going to be found not guilty. And if you believe that way, I think you crazy as hell. This is a high-profile case. Women was on the stand crying. They said Diddy was abusive. Do you really think the jury, do you really think the feds is going to let Diddy walk away scot-free? I don't think so. I think Diddy's going to be found guilty on at least 2 or 3 charges, and he probably going to get a 12 to 15 year sentence. That's my educated guess. Now I want you guys to comment and you tell me what you think Diddy going to get, because Judge Mathis went on Vlad TV, and he's a judge, and he said he thinks Diddy may get overcharged. Listen to this clip and we're going to come back and break it down. Let's go.
According to Judge Mathis, who's an actual real judge, he thinks 1 count of transportation to engage in prostitution, or possibly multiple counts, depending on what it is, those are all 1 to 10 charges, and you think the judge will throw the book at him and give him 10?
Yes. I hope not, because I don't know if that's a fair sentence. I don't know if I'm not sure if the code, the U.S. code sentencing requirements are too stiff for flying in a prostitute to have sex with. You can get up to 10 years. That doesn't sound appropriate.
That sounds crazy.
Right.
That sounds absolutely crazy.
I hope he doesn't over-sentence him to compensate for other things, because I would suspect that depending on the number of times, even if it was the different various prostitutes, 3 acts, 4 acts, that 4 acts of tricking 4 times shouldn't get you 10 years.
Tricking get you 10 years. Tricking will get you 10.
Now I agree with Judge Mathis on that. I can say that. I think we blowing this whole thing out of proportion. Diddy's rich. If he want to hire workers to fly across the country and perform for him, that's his business. Ain't no holier than thou dude. I'm not sitting here saying this shouldn't happen. That's what dudes with money do. You live a certain lifestyle, you live a certain way, and it's his prerogative. But I do agree with Judge Mathis. He will get found guilty of that, and it carries a charge to 1 to 10 years. And I think the judge may throw the book at him as well. I'm not saying they're going to give him 10 years, but I can see them giving him like 6 years on each charge, which is crazy in itself. Because think about it. You rich. You hiring workers to fly across the country to perform for you. They agree. Everybody is willing participants. What the hell is wrong with that? You see what I'm saying? But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts about this whole situation. I want to know how you guys feel about it. Do you think Diddy would be found guilty or not guilty? Let me know in the comment section, and give me your reason too. Don't just say not guilty and don't give me a reason, and don't just say guilty and don't give me a reason. Let me know why you feel that way. But anyway, guys, share this video. I love you guys. Peace.